Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Becoming Abraham, episode 3. You're still here. You're still enduring for more of this. No, I'm kidding. Thanks again for listening. Thanks again for watching. Getting a little better. I took those big headphones off from the last one, so hopefully I'll work my way up to Bluetooth. But we're just here now with the wired earbuds. Becoming Abraham, where we talk about the journey of being the first, the journey of walking through the seasons and transitions of life and being the first. All right. So thank you guys if you're watching on YouTube. Thank you for supporting, like, and subscribe. I'm trying to be like the cool kids, so like and subscribe is going to be down below. If you are listening on a podcast, whether it is Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, please give us a like. Give me all the likes. Give me all the likes and all the subscribes. Do all of that for me. And again, the website is divemedia.co. Divemedia.co. All right. So I said after the last episode that I was going to come in and we were going to do one episode. Quick one here. This is not going to be. This is going to be similar to episode 2. It's going to be a short episode. And what we're going to do tonight is talk a little bit about my background. I'm not going to give you the entire autobiography, but I'm just going to hit some points. And I hope that from listening to these points from this episode, that it helps you to understand sort of why we're doing this podcast. Why there is a becoming Abraham. What are we trying to become? What are we trying to become? All right. I'm going to be better now and keep my eyes focused up here on the camera. And got a whole bunch of equipment behind me, so I'm looking around. If you wonder why I'm looking around, it's all the equipment. All right, but I'm going to be a professional here and look at this camera. So we're going to talk tonight about the background, right? My background. So quick overview. And I hope in hearing this, you understand a little bit more about the process of being the first, about some of the power that comes from doing something first and sort of seeing it through to the end, seeing things come to fruition, and sort of the fulfillment and purpose that will sort of take place in your heart and in your life. So I am the oldest sibling. I have a couple siblings. I am the oldest. I am almost 50 years old. So as you can see all this gray hair. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm about 50-50 salt and pepper. My wife loves this salt and pepper. I used to dye my hair, but then it just got annoying, so I just stopped. So now I got a little bit of salt and pepper. And I remember talking to an old friend of mine about it. I started going gray a little earlier in my life. And I was complaining about the gray hair. And he says, man, Amadi, at least you have all your hair. Stop complaining. It's from that conversation, I stopped complaining about the gray. So I got a little bit of salt and pepper going on. All right. I've lived in D.C., Washington, D.C. I've lived in Maryland, the suburbs of Washington. Lived in VA, lived in New York for a little bit, but the most of my life I spent down here in the DC area. The locals call it the DMV, right? But it's the DC area. All right. So growing up, my family was impacted. Like many young people growing up in the 70s and 80s. My family was impacted by the drug epidemic. Like I said, my parents are Caribbean immigrants. I'm the first person in my family born in the U.S. Both of my parents are from the Caribbean. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, everybody. Right. So from my generation on, first person born in the United States. But yeah, my family was impacted by the drug epidemic. Pops kind of wrestled with that a lot in his adult life. And so because of that, my parents they separated a couple other times when I was a kid, but my parents finally broke up, separated officially when I was about 14. So I was about 14 uh, in my freshman year of high school. So I was a freshman in high school. Shout out to Mufasa right here. So my finger's pointing. I got Mufasa still up here. I told you guys I was going to change this. So next episode, I promise that this will be a different photo up here, different picture. I mean, it'll be a different one up here on the wall. But my parents separated when I was a freshman in high school, and ironically enough, it was about the same time that my paternal grandfather, separated from my paternal grandmother. So my father actually experienced that same trauma about the same age as I did. We were about the same age. And so for about the next 12 years or so, I think I may have seen my father twice in about 12 years. So you can sort of imagine that. I was, like I said, I had just turned 14. I was a freshman in high school, just starting freshman year of high school. I mean, it was the fall. And then I didn't see him again until my late 20s. I was in my late 20s. Now, how we got reconnected was, and I'm fast forwarding past a lot. I don't want to paint the picture like I had the worst childhood. I know there are people that had way, way, way worse situations than me. So I don't want to paint the picture like my childhood was the worst. I had a lot of great moments, had a lot of good things that happened. Even when my parents were together, we did a lot of cool stuff. Even after they split up and it was just me and my mom and my sister for a while, we still had good times. I mean, did we struggle? Of course we struggled. Single mother in the 90s. She still struggled, but, it was not like, we were running through landmine fields all the time. So I don't want to paint that picture like it was the worst. I'm just trying to give you a quick overview of how I got to where I am. So, reconnected with my pops at my mother's funeral. So my mother actually passed away in 2008. 2008, she passed away. And one of my uncles said, hey, I'm going to reach out to your dad. I'm going to find him and I'm going to let him know that your mom died. And I said, hey, that's fine. Whatever. Again, I wasn't angry. I was sort of apathetic. Just like, hey, whatever. Doesn't matter to me. Right. So fast forward and he comes to my mother's funeral. And that's how we reconnect. Ironically enough, that's how we reconnect. I reconnected with my natural father because my mother passed away, and obviously try to rekindle some communication and restart some things. And I remember having lunch with him one day, not too long after that. We had exchanged numbers and we talked and whatever. And I said, listen, at this point, I had two children. Two of my two oldest were born. And I said, listen, I'm gonna leave the past in the past because there's nothing you could do to change the past, right? So I'm willing to start from scratch if you're willing to start from scratch. Almost like we two completely new people meeting folks for the first time. Because I said, the little boy you left when I was 14 years old, he doesn't exist anymore, right? At this point, I'm almost 30 years old. I'm married. I have two children. Like, I'm a different person. And so you have to learn this person. And so, he was willing to do that. And so we did. Trust me, there was some explosive moments early on, and if anyone who's ever tried to reconnect with a parent who was absent, you can probably attest to, I know they're not talking to me. So little things slip out. You're like, what did they just say? I know they didn't just say that to me, right? So yeah, there were some of those moments, definitely some of those moments. And I remember having some really tough conversations with God when I'm praying. Listen, very tough, very honest conversations with God. Hey, why didn't you take him instead of my mother? Why did you take her? Right? Yeah, having very hard conversations. And then fast forward maybe 5, 6 years. I mean, it could have been more. And I'm really getting a little fuzzy on the exact time frame. But from that moment when my mother passed away, I mean, it had to be probably about 5 years later, 6 years later. I'm in my house one Christmas morning. So it's a tradition in my house. We kind of do the gifts in the morning, and then we'll sort of do breakfast or brunch or whatever. But we'll sit down with the kids in the morning, let them open up all the gifts, do the family thing in the morning with the gifts. My wife and I usually will exchange the gifts that we got for each other. We'll do that on Christmas Eve. That's kind of been our tradition. And then that way we're able to, really celebrate with the kids, the stuff that we got for the kids, the things the kids may have got for us. So we kind of do that. It's Christmas morning. So we're in my house Christmas morning. And my father is with us Christmas morning. I can't remember if he spent the night, like came over Christmas Eve night. I think he probably came over Christmas Eve night because my father lives in the city, so he doesn't drive. So he probably came over the night before. So I think I might have picked him up and he came over, spent the night. And so we're there Christmas Eve morning. And I'm sitting and I'm kind of off to the side and I'm just sort of watching because the man that he had become with my children was not the man that I knew. And so I'm watching him and I just remember thinking like, whoa, 5 or 6 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, I would have never envisioned the day that I'd be sitting in my house on Christmas morning, and my father is sitting with my children and they kind of playing and unwrapping gifts and et cetera, et cetera. You could, if you would have asked me in the, like in Marvel multiverse, that would have never been the case. I would have never thought that to be the case. And one of the things that actually displayed for me, like I told you guys in episode 1, right? I choose to walk and follow the God of the Bible. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but that's my cup of tea. And one of the ways in which God showed himself to be real to me was that morning, that Christmas morning, because I never thought that would have been possible, ever. The amount of rage, because it was a little bit beyond anger. There was rage in my heart towards that man in a season of my life. Not just because of my childhood, but once I became a father, the love that I had for my children, caused me to reflect again on my relationship with my own father. And you would think, man, did you not love me? Because the way that I love my children, there's no planet on which I would just kind of leave, right? I understand people's relationships don't work out and you might, have to do the custody thing and stuff like that. I totally understand. Sometimes things don't go the way you plan. You can work as hard as you want, and things don't always work out. That I totally understand. But to just leave and be gone, I couldn't fathom that. And so I had a certain amount of rage in my heart that I believe God healed me from, right? So God had healed my heart at this point. This is, again, 5 or 10 years later. And I'm sitting in my house on Christmas and I'm just marveling at the fact that not that the kids are opening gifts, but that my father's here and we're all sitting and actually behaving like a family. So again, tremendous, just really a tremendous moment for me anyway. And then fast forward here as we sort of come around third base. I promise you this wouldn't be a long episode. So fast forward, my father, he passed away. My father passed away about 3 years ago. And so I'm planning his funeral. I did the eulogy at his funeral. We planned everything, programs, invite the family, the, event, everything, whole 9 yards, the whole kit and caboodle. And after the funeral, my oldest daughter, like I said, this will be a family affair, so you will eventually meet my oldest daughter, Destiny, on subsequent episodes. My oldest daughter, after the funeral is all said and done, we kind of wrap everything up, have the repast and do everything. And she's very analytical like me. She'll sit and she'll watch, because I'll sit and watch sometimes and not really say a lot. I'll just observe. Hence the Christmas morning story. And so afterwards, she pulled me to the side, like the next day or 2 days later or so. She said, "Dad, I want to ask you a question." And I'm like, "Yeah, so what's going on?" I always give my children the space to speak their mind. Unless they're being disciplined. I'm like, if you're getting disciplined, that's not the time to speak your mind. All right. But in most circumstances, I always give my children, like, my children know that they have my ear. And so she's like, "Dad, can you mind if I ask you a couple questions?" I'm like, "Hey, what's going on? Talk to me." I thought something was wrong. And she said, "Yeah, how could you do all that stuff for your dad?" I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "The funeral and the eulogy and honoring him and this, that, and the third. Like, why?" Like, just, she was perplexed. Because at that point, my oldest daughter, she was probably a senior in high school. So, I mean, it's not like she's a little kid. We, as the kids got a little older, particularly my older two children, I let them know some of my past. So they know some of the past. And I've let them know some of the areas in which how I grew up, and so she, at this point, knew some of the history. So she says, "Dad, how are you able to do all of that, and why would you do all of that for him, knowing the history, knowing the past? Like, why would you do that?" And she'll be watching this episode, so she'll probably appreciate this. But I remember telling her, I said, "You know what? I'm not going to answer that right now. Can you give me a day or two, and I will get back to you with a very thorough answer." She's probably laughing right now because she knows a thorough dad answer is a long-winded answer. But I got back to her, and I said, "Hey, let's sit down and talk. I want to answer your question now." And I gave her two things. The first thing I said to her was, "Yeah, there was a lot of history there, and yes, there were some things that your grandfather did that hurt me when I was a child and much younger, but God had healed me from that, and I got to the point in my maturity where I was able to show him honor." Right? There's a scripture in the Bible, in the book in the Old Testament, where in Exodus 20, right, when the Israelites, when the ancient Hebrews received the 10 Commandments, one of the commandments is honor your mother and your father, so that your days might be long in the land. And that scripture does not say honor your mother and your father if they deserve it. It says to honor them. And so I chose, again, like we talked about love in the earlier episode, love being a choice, honor is also a choice. And I told her, I said, "Hey, I chose to honor your grandfather, right? Because of my decision to walk with the God of the Bible. He orchestrates my life. He orchestrates my actions. He gives the mandates and the dictates how I'm to live. And so I choose to make some of these decisions." And the second thing I told her was, I said, "You want to know what else is going to be a result of this?" I said, "You, my daughter, will never be able to get this out of your mind the way you saw your father show honor to someone who may or may not have deserved it in some people's eyes. But you won't forget this moment. God is going to use this moment for you later on in your life." And so for me, that's reward enough, right? Would I have preferred things to have been different? Sure, of course. But I also understand that, in the book of Isaiah, it states that God can give us beauty for ashes. And so God can bring beautiful things from sometimes some of the worst things. And so some of the some of the worst and lowest moments in my life, God used to get glory. For anybody, particularly for the men out there, you're listening, you know how difficult it is being a young man. All the changes, all the maturity that takes place, all the development that takes place in your adolescent and young adult years. Now imagine having to go through that alone, right? Yeah, it's extremely difficult. And so that's one of the drivers for me to make sure that I do my best to be the father that I would have wanted when I was their age, right? So that's how God can get glory out of that. So I want to leave you with just one last scripture. It's in the book of 1 Samuel. And it says that man looks and judges the outward, but God looks at the heart. It's 1 Samuel chapter 16. It's always the heart. A lot of circumstances will transpire. A lot of different things will happen in our lives, but we have to make sure that we keep our heart right. Now, that might take time. We are not machines, and so things are going to happen to us that'll try to knock us off our square, and it may take a while to get back, but you have to still have the desire to want to get back, all right? And guess what? It may be difficult if you've never seen anyone do that before. That's why you're the first, and that's why we are becoming Abraham. So I hope this has been beneficial to you guys, because I wanted you to understand that it is possible. It is possible to regain the right footing. It is possible to reestablish yourself, to reestablish your lineage, to begin to prepare for a future, despite your background, despite what may happen in your past. It is possible to, like what the Bible says, redeem what the locusts have tried to steal from you. Okay? It is possible. I'm a living witness to it. So I hope this has been beneficial to you all. Take your time. It is a process. It is a process to get reestablished. That's why you need wise counsel. That's why you need strong relationships. And that's why you need to have a foundation. Again, like I've told you before, the God of the Bible is my foundation, but you need to have a foundation. I strongly, recommend that you do not try to just do this all yourself. I got this. You're going to have to do a lot by yourself, but you don't have to do everything by yourself. Surround yourself with wise counsel. Surround yourself with good, strong relationships, and have a foundation. And hopefully, as you walk these things out with faith and desire and discipline, you too can be the first. So I'm going to wrap here. Again, thank you all for watching. If you're on YouTube, again, like, subscribe. Really hope that these will become things that add to you and build you up. If you're listening, again, on the audio podcast, Spotify, YouTube Music, iTunes, Apple Music, wherever you're listening to, please give us a 5-star review. The website is divemedia.co, divemedia.co. All the different links to the past episodes will be down in the show notes. The link to the website will be in the show notes. We're going to continue to start building this community. So we're going to have different things on social media. You'll see us on the gram, TikTok, Facebook, even for my boomers and my Gen Xers out there. I got y'all. We're going to be on Facebook. All right. So again, thank you guys and welcome.